Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Meet Zinnia.
You are being very polite to someone who is attempting to kill us.
Her wife, Saffron.
You know I'm wildly, madly in love with you.
And their best friend, Goldie.
Glad we didn't miss all the fun.
Swords in hand, they defend their city from the worst of humanity.
I am Lord Buxton Blue.
Equity Electric.
Herr Haig. Virgil Walcott. Vicious Suave.
Follow their adventures on the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society audio drama podcast. Available now at truestory.fm/swashbuckling.
Hey, movie lovers, I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson. We are the hosts of the Next Reel Film Podcast.
If you're passionate about films like we are, you'll love our show. Each week, we dive deep into a movie, discussing everything from the story and performances to the cinematography and score.
Not to mention budgets and awards. We have covered iconic series like Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather trilogy, examining themes of power, family, and the dark side of the American dream.
We've explored the works of groundbreaking directors like Catherine Bigelow, discussing her mastery of tension.
We've looked at heist films, great car chases, great years in film, couples on the run, and more.
Our discussions go beyond the surface, examining what makes each film tick. We believe that when the movie ends, the conversation begins.
And we'd love for you to join that conversation. Find the Next Reel Film Podcast on your favorite podcast app or at thenextreel.com.
The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Hello and welcome to Gank
That Drank. My phlegm kicked in like right away.
Oh no. A supernatural drinking game podcast. It's the podcast where we drink along with an episode of our favorite show, Supernatural, as we recap it for you. We play along with the drinking game rules that we made up. We tell you how the rules played out, and then at the end, we tell you what's coming up for next week or next 2 weeks, next time. We tell you what's coming up for next time.
You'll see us when you see us. Hear us when you hear us.
Yeah.
You know.
We got,
you know what we mean.
We got a really good episode coming up. Who's that over there? Who's going to do the episode this time?
Oh, this is Nate McWhortor, a performer and teacher at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater. And who's that over there doing the awesome intros and dealing with me talking through them?
It's Krissy Lenz, one of the directors and a performer at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona. Super happy to be back this week. Super excited to do more of the Chuck Wagon with you. Because now we're really getting into it.
Oh, we're getting into the real Chuck of it all, if you will, with this episode. This is the coming out party of who Chuck really is, what he's all about, what his thoughts are, what his feelings are, what his ambitions are. He learns to play guitar.
You're making a little poem.
I am. And this is we haven't seen him in quite some seasons. Mm-hmm. If you recall. It was many seasons ago, back in 5, 6. We just did it. I should know. But
the end of season 5.
End of season 5, which is basically season 6. We last see him, other than when we see him in fan fiction. And I believe, what is season 9?
Season 10.
10? Close.
Mm-hmm.
And we see him in fan fiction at the very end when he comes in and says that the wonderful musical rendition of Supernatural is not bad. And so now we're getting, gosh, this episode, I could watch it again, I think, right now. I say that in a weird way because it's not like, it is not an exciting episode necessarily.
Yeah.
As far as the boys are concerned.
It's a real talker.
It's a talker. But boy, for the show, does it carry a lot of weight. So
it's true.
I'm excited to talk about it. But hopefully this is gonna be one of the weirder, harder recaps I think I've ever had to do. Is this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It's gonna be a real tap dance.
Yeah, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and admit that the wiki is gonna help me along on it, because my Scribble Scrabble notes are, while funny not always the best
Okay.
at helping me along. So if I will try not to be reading directly off it, but it will be assisting me. I'm just going to get that. I'm going to put that out front as far as sausage being
Okay.
made here.
Uh-huh.
Putting on Front Street. So, Krissy, are you ready to get into season... I know the thing. Season 11, episode 20. Don't Call Me Shurley.
Yes, but what are our rules?
Oh, how could I forget, Krissy? Our rules for this episode are lost somewhere. I literally
Okay.
had the notebook.
Drink for a pop culture reference.
Yes, that was one of the rules.
Drink for black veins.
Oh, I found it. Drink for black veins. Drink for when we're talking about Amara, which is a lot of times. Drink for anytime we see some fog. And then we're drinking for a Chuck solo.
Chuck solo.
Boo. Yeah, them's the rules. This episode aired May 4th, 2016, was directed by Robert Singer and written by Robbie Thompson. And it is chock full of stuff. So let's dive into it, Krissy.
Let's dive.
There's no then.
There's no then. We're just in the now.
We're in the now. And there we are. And we are in a dumpster. With Metatron. In a dumpster with Metatron, who we have not seen in quite some time. We've never really talked about Metatron on this show.
Nope, we sure haven't.
This is actually our first mention of Metatron on this show.
Yep, Metatron, the voice of God.
Prophet.
Angel. Prophet. And, go ahead.
Oh, you go. You keep going.
No, I was just gonna say played by Curtis Armstrong of
Yes.
80s movies fame.
Yes.
Who's in one of my favorite 80s movies, Better Off Dead.
And is just a delightful character actor that you just get, on Supernatural all the time, and plays. I really. We're talking about Chuck. I decided to go in on Chuck, but Metatron is another character that I really want to do a dive on. Because I think that
he's a good one.
He's a good one, but I don't know if it's me, and I'm not super. I probably should be that we do this show. I'm not super plugged into the online Supernatural community or how a lot of fans feel about Metatron in general. For me personally, I think that Metatron / Men of Letters kind of stretch is not necessarily my favorite stretch of Supernatural. That being said,
mine.
I do want to go back and revisit it, I guess, is what I guess, especially after this episode particularly.
Okay.
Because I feel like we get so much from Metatron in this episode.
Well,
so
this
much
is one
more
of his best episodes. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, completely. But I just mean it's so interesting because he talks about, when we'll get into it, about Chuck writing his book, where's the good stuff? Where's the stuff that people want to know about? And that's kind of how I feel about this episode with Metatron. Is I'm like, where was this in his initial run? When and he has a big arc and he ends up trying to play God and taking down heaven and blah, blah, blah. But I just, he really shines. Curtis Armstrong really shines in this episode. So I just want to say that off the bat. He absolutely shines. And he starts off in a dumpster and he's dumpster diving and he's got a pastrami sandwich and he's going to eat it, but he feeds it to his dog because gosh darn it, he's just become so in love with humanity.
And dogmanity.
And dogmanity, yeah. Since he started feeling his heartbeat and realized that maybe people were not the scum that he and all the angels and even Chuck really think they are. So he's dumpster diving. He's got a sandwich. He's going to eat it, but he feeds it to the dog. And then all of a sudden he is transported to somewhere else. And he says, I don't believe we're on Earth anymore, Toto. Take a drink, because that's a pop culture reference, obviously. And lo and behold, he's in a bar. He's in a bar that has got some music playing, some good old time music. There's someone at the booth with a coffee mug that says "World's Greatest Dad." Thus, like,
Mm-hmm.
really, really, if you hadn't figured it, and this is like so interesting. Like, we're end of season 11. Like, who's gonna be in this booth? What's going? Because I think everything's leading to, like, this is probably gonna be God. Amara is the big bad here. Like, who's the only thing that can stop this? And it's God.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, sitting there is Chuck.
It's Chuck.
Boom. Oh man. Oh man. Here we go. The big reveal. Chuck is God.
Mm-hmm.
And Metatron doesn't necessarily believe him at first. He's actually trash talking Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
He says, he's like, oh, Chuck, what are you doing? Your books, Supernatural, they didn't even crack my top of all the books I've read in all my life, and they didn't even crack that top 10,000. The
Mm-hmm.
dribble, that's terrible. You're a hack. What do you? And then Chuck reveals, by the way, hey, I'm gonna turn the lights on, or put these glasses on. I'm gonna reveal who I really am, and he's God, and literally, Hallelujah. What's the Messiah starts playing? You know, they play at Christmas time. Starts playing. We get God's shining light, and all of a sudden now Metatron is groveling. I'm so sorry about what I said about Supernatural. It's not Drek. It's good. It's good. I like it.
He says, and this is my favorite bar. It's just like Cheers. Everyone knows my
Everybody knows my
name.
name. Take a drink.
It's so good.
Yes, it's so good. And then Chuck says, he's like, okay, yeah, um, you know, I understand. Maybe they're not the best things, but, like, you didn't have to go burning it. This is in his reveal, obviously, when he says you didn't have to go burning. You have to go burning my book. Or he says he references Tall Tales, which is an episode that we've talked about, which is the book that Metatron burns in a previous episode. And he's, of course, this is when he's like, how did you know about that? Well, here I am. I'm God. Yeah, he burns Tall Tales, which is we just did it very, very recently. Yes,
We just
it was
did
your
Tall Tales.
episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the one where it's like X-Files episode where they're each telling their own version of the story, and it's great. So
and there's alien slow dance and
yeah, alien slow dance. Yes. So now that we got the big reveal that Chuck is God, that why is Metatron here? Well, we're gonna have to get back to that because this show is not about Metatron and Chuck. It's about Sam and Dean Winchester. The boys are trying to get on a case because, like, Amara's, in the background basically, and so now that we got to try to find a case maybe where Amara might be. Some guy in Idaho kills his wife out of nowhere, and they basically are like, okay, we're gonna go check that out. That seems like a thing that we should, the premises for them going and checking stuff out later in the show
get real thin.
Super thin. Super thin. But sure. All right. Yeah, we're going to Idaho. Yeah. We cut back to, because they think it might be Amara. I mean, yes, they're like, oh, this might be Amara, but like, okay, but what really makes you so we cut back to the bar. This whole episode basically is going to go just back and forth between mostly the bar with Chuck and Metatron, and then the boys out on this case, which ends up being Amara, sort of. Yeah. Back to why is Metatron here with Chuck? And basically Chuck says, we're getting the band back together. And Metatron's like, Lennon and McCartney. And Chuck's like, well, I'm more Lennon and McCartney. He wants to write a new autobiography, or he already has written a new autobiography, Chuck has, about himself as God. And he wants Metatron to look over it. It needs an editor, he says. And so Metatron is kind of stoked. He's like, all right, I'm about this. Let's read what you got. And he starts reading, and he's like, oof. No, it's good. It's good.
It's good.
It's good. And Chuck says the last time.
It.
The last time I handed an editor or got that response from an editor, I just handed him Bugs, a
Yeah,
season 1
it's a
episode.
season 1 episode that's like so bad.
Polter guy, it's like Indian burial ground, bad. Yeah, it's not good. Uh, so I love the writers obviously using this opportunity to poke fun at themselves, which Chuck has always been a conduit for them to like make commentary on themselves, like using commenting on themselves and how people view the work of Supernatural in general. So like we're
Yeah.
back at it 5-6 years later. Here, this is what we think about what people think. Basically,
Yeah.
is kind of how this episode plays out through Chuck's eyes. But at the same time, I think this episode offers a lot of interesting thoughts, perspectives on just religion and maybe Christianity and or Western religions, at least in general. I think offers and also the myth, the oh gosh, who's the old time that wrote all the stuff like Dante's Inferno? No, that basically gave us all
Dante?
this. All is it Dante? Yeah, who gave us all the stories of all these angels and everything that this show is mostly based off of. Yeah, because it's not like stuff from the Bible. The Satan being cast out, Lucifer being cast out from heaven, and all that is much later works. So yeah, this I then completely just got lost. Let me get right back on
Yeah.
track.
Okay.
I lost
It's
myself in
Dante
that.
Alighieri.
There we go. It is Dante. See, I knew it's Dante's Inferno.
Dante's The Inferno.
Inferno is what a lot of this show is kind of based off of, or at least the like myth parts of this show are based off of. So basically Chuck is like, I've been up to a lot of fun things. Like I've traveled the world. I've but we know what Chuck's been up to. He calls like phone sex lines anyway. He's like, I learned to play guitar. I started a cat blog. My cat blog's funny. And Metatron, he's like, yeah, you're devoting a lot of pages to Chuck. You're devoting a lot of pages to like things that don't matter. People want to know juicy stuff. They want to know about your relationship with Lucifer. They want to know about your relationship with your sister Amara. They want to know about your like. And he says this much later on in the episode, but I think it's a great. He just why did you do any of this? And so this is the eternal. This is the tug of war of this episode between Metatron and Chuck. Is Chuck for some reason wanting to have this memoir out there about, but then wanting it to be not whitewashed. And the great line, which is also a drink because it's pop culture reference, as Metatron says,
Right.
You want to have In My Own Words by Mick Jagger, or Wouldn't It Be Nice by Brian Wilson. Boy, does that just like, that's like a gut punch of a line. Because like, first of all, Brian Wilson out here catching strays, just catching strays.
Yep.
But man, I felt like of all the lines in this episode, that one really just like, and there's some doozies, but that one strikes just because it's like, okay, I mean, this is a question for anyone, right? How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be like, whatever? So, and especially because this is God. And the other line that I really love, where he's like, oh yeah, that stuff about Chuck, it makes you seem like a real down to earth, relatable human. And Chuck's like, yeah, what's wrong with that? You're neither down to earth nor a human. Like, this is not what people want to know about. They want to know why you put Lucifer and Amara in cages. They want to know why you created. And Chuck just doesn't want to. This is Chuck therapy, right? We're watching Chuck go through therapy live and in person. So back to the boys, as they are investigating what's going on, they basically they come into they start asking questions like, oh, was there like fog? did it smell like sulfur? And no one could really answer them. They're talking to a deputy. We meet the deputy, and we meet the police department of this little town, because she's got to get home to her newlywed husband. Yes, got to get home to him. And she's also the tech whiz of the office, we find out too. She really does it all. This young deputy they hired. And so she heads home after looking up some stuff for the boys, because they look at the pictures of the Vic and they see the black veins. So we're taking a drink because we see some black veins.
Black veins.
So the boys are trying to get down to the bottom of this case. Meanwhile, she goes home to her husband, and while she's at home, she sees this fog roll in. She decides she's going to call in the fog to dispatch, which, imagine dispatch sitting there.
Like, what do you want me to do about a fog?
Fog. All right, cool. Did you have one too many on your way home? What's up? So there's some fog, and when she gets choked out by it, we come to find out she actually shoots her husband
right in the face.
We don't see it. They just mentioned it happens off screen, but the fog makes her shoot her husband in the face.
And she gets the black veins, so we take another drink.
Yes, she gets black veins. We're taking drinks.
I'm drinking for the fog.
Drinking for fog. I'm missing all the drinks because it's just a lot of talk. But yes, drinking for fog, drinking for black veins, drinking for just to drink. Just keep drinking during this episode. That's what Metatron does, so you should do it too.
Yep. Drink when he drinks.
Oh yes, also I forgot to mention, Chuck started a new book called Revolution. Hilarious. Maybe titles aren't your thing. Yeah. I'm kind of getting that. Metatron also wonders why the Dean's amulet never went off or came on when he was around Chuck or anything. And it's literally, this is the most just back written BS. I turned it off.
Yeah.
Which is why Chuck being God just kind of bugs me as a device. Because it's you can just basically explain anything by being he's God.
Yeah, he's God. Yeah. He turned it off.
We can write our way out of anything because he's God.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah, I get it. He's
like Hamilton. He'll write his way out.
He'll write the way out. Please don't sue us. Hope Springs, the name of the town in Idaho. By the way, I did not bother to look up if that was a real place or not. So, back at the bar, Chuck and Metatron they're really starting to kind of get at each other now. Chuck is actually starting to do some rewrites because he decides he doesn't want to write Wouldn't It Be Nice? He wants to write In My Own Words. And so he starts hammering out rewrites. Metatron's reading it. Metatron's loving it. Yes, this is the stuff. This is what you should really be going after. Chapter 10, Why I Never Answer Prayers and You Should Be Glad I Don't. Chapter 11, The Truth About Divine Intervention and Why I Avoid It at All Costs. Great, wonderful, awesome. And this is when Metatron asks, but why? And Chuck, well, can you be more specific? I kind of get that from everybody. He's like, why any of it? Why
did you create life?
Why did you create? And he says, well, when it was just me and my sister, when it was just me and Amara, she is darkness. I am being. I am light. I am creation. She is darkness. Every time I would create a world, she would just destroy it. So I had to, and Metatron says, I get that, but you didn't just stop at one archangel. You created worlds. You created planets. You created a whole things. And he says, I guess once she was away, I wanted to see, he's like, you got down to pure, unfettered creation. And I really kind of like that.
Yeah, I loved it.
I really, really like it. I really like that as a God's backstory thing. Is he had this other force that is part of him that he can't. He tried to stifle and control, just like we all try to stifle and control a darkness within us or whatever. And once he was able to do that and put it away, he was able to really get to work and really just like go to town on just making stuff. But at the same time, you can't always then hide that darkness away. It's gonna come out eventually. And so you have to be ready to maybe watch your creations fall and fail. And it's like, after 11 seasons of the show, these guys are like, if this is where we hang it up, this is where we're hanging it up. Like, it feels so much like season 5 again.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, they had to know at this point that the show could go on forever. So,
Right.
you
And
know.
that's the other part of it. It's like, okay, but how do we then do this? Which is why it makes the end of this episode very supernatural. But yeah, so I love this monologue and this scene between Chuck and Metatron of like him, and then Chuck says, the closest I ever got, and he snaps, and they're on some what looks like either glacial or coastal or both, like shoreline with it's obviously someplace in Canada that they're filming,
Right.
and this gorgeous place, he says,
Someplace
nature, this is
beautiful.
the closest I ever got to perfection. Is like, nature is perfect. Like, nature is the perfect balance. It cleanses the earth when it needs to cleanse the earth. It will always like reset. And then we get references to Noah's Ark, because he says, yeah, when you reset the earth, you just flood it and let make one person build a ship and reset. There's so much again in these couple scenes, especially once they go to this shoreline, because this is where Chuck reveals, like, we need to walk around, we need to enjoy it, because it's not going to be here very long, because I'm just going to let Amara do her thing. I'm dipping. I'm actually, you all thought I left, now I'm actually leaving, and
he's
Metatron
almost cheerful about it.
Yeah, like real sickly cheer.
Chuck
Yes,
is.
Chuck is. Yeah, and Metatron is like, how can you do this? How can, look at this? You've created this. Why not fight? Why not fight for your creations? Fight for your right to party. You need to. You can't let Amara win. Like, and Chuck's like, well, who let her out? Sam and Dean Winchester. Well, yeah, like those shitbirds too. But like, it's so interesting. Again, Metatron's point of view in this is so interesting, especially from when we just like previously see him, and that he's the one that's fighting for humanity. He's the one that is trying to talk Chuck off the ledge here.
Yeah.
Because
when he was trying to tear it all down before.
Yeah. And Chuck is like, well, I'm, and Metatron's like, I'm annoyed that, why did you have me help you write this dumb autobiography? And he's like, because, like, you told me to write for an audience of one. You told me to write, and so I'm writing for me. I'm the only one who's going to be around. He's like, no one's going to read this thing. He's like, well, I will, and you told me to write for me. And they get back to the bar, and this is where Metatron decides he's gonna go ahead and stand up to Chuck, and he calls him a coward. And this
Which
probably
really makes him go dark.
It goes straight Old Testament on his ass. And this is probably one of Rob Benedict's best scenes he's ever done.
I think so.
Show.
I love it.
I mean, this monologue, a lot of people have called me a lot of things, absentee father, but one thing no one's ever called me is a coward. It is a good, I mean, it's scary. And then that's when Metatron's like, yeah, Metatron's so sick. He's like, that's what I'm talking about. That's my guy. Okay, you throw me out of the bar with your force push. Okay, this is the God I know. This is capital G-O-D here. So the back and forth here on the I think that was earlier in the episode, but either way, the back and forth on these two is so fun. The boys, meanwhile, are now dealing with this incoming fog. And this incoming
it's taken over
fog
the whole town.
is starting to spread throughout the town. The dispatch, people have called it in from dispatch, and the boys are like, okay, they're like trying to rescue people from cars in what is like one of the most futile efforts of saving people I've ever seen on this show. And that's saying a lot. So
Yeah, Sammy's like pulling little babies out of car seats and like running with them into the police station, and
yeah, and
I'm like,
people are
Sam, what are you gonna do with
screaming.
that baby?
What exactly? What's the point? Like leaving the parents behind? It's yeah. So they make their way to the police station. We literally have this is like what's the Mist? What was that movie?
Yeah, The Mist.
The Mist. Yeah, it's kind of what this feels like, or a little bit like The Happening, or whatever. We're gonna barricade ourselves in the police station, and that'll keep us safe. And they hear, well, before the deputy, they still have not found the deputy who shot her husband, and oh, she's driving right towards the police station. So that's when the boys, right before the fog is invading the town fully, and they're rescuing babies. They're like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Here she is, and she comes out of the car, all black veined out, all up her
Yeah.
neck and everything, and she says, "I have a message for you, Dean Winchester, from her. Her voice has been ringing in my head. The woman that she made me shoot my husband. I had to watch." And she I actually don't even remember what she says. What the message is. It's basically something like, just give up.
Everyone, it's like everyone's gonna suffer, but you. Everyone will die, but
Yes,
you, Dean
everyone will
Winchester.
die, but you, Dean Winchester. Yeah. Because that's how insignificant the boys' storyline is to this episode. Is that like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't Chuck and Metatron talking, I think I was dozing off. I mean, I've watched it several times, but this last time I was like, if it's not those two talking, I don't really care, because that's the big part of this anyway. So yeah, Amara is sending messages through the victims of the fog. Now the boys are trying to keep the police station safe. They're taping all the doors. They're taping all the vents.
Duct taping all the vents.
Duct taping on walls. We all know how well that goes. Not at all. And they hear people like screaming and stuff outside, and then it stops. But then, oh nope! Now they're black vein people. We got to get further in the police station because they're gonna crash down the door. All hell is breaking loose. Absolutely, all hell is breaking loose. Pandemonium. We then get that kind of like tense Chuck and Metatron scene, and Chuck says, "Hey, how about you have a look-see, Metatron, at how things are going out there?" And it's just news reports of all the fog and people being attacked, and it is literally apocalypse because here comes Amara. And Chuck's just sitting in this bar in this very safe place, which he said is the safest place on earth. And then that's when Metatron goes in on him. This is part of the whole coward, calling him a coward thing. He's like, no, you're hiding from Amara. You don't want to go out there and face it. You don't want to face her demon. You can't stand to face it, which is almost like, again, the writers being like, can you face this show not existing anymore? What are you going to be without this show?
No, we can't. We need this show. We need
must
it.
go
Bring it back.
It must go on, right? So, and just with anything, I mean, I think using just Chuck maybe as a conduit, as ourselves, right? God created us in his image according to everything like that. Is I think that there's like lessons, or talk about lessons learned. There's so many in this episode. I think there's just like motivational pieces of this episode of like, even when you feel like everything is going against you and nothing can be right, like you can, if as long as you still have autonomy and power and the ability to like live and breathe and hope and do stuff, like keep fighting.
Yeah,
and so,
always keep fighting.
Keep fighting. And I think that's what Metatron is giving this pep talk to Chuck. Like, you need to so the boys are not doing well. They're struggling to save people. Sam is now the fog's gotten in through the vents.
Fully infected.
Sam is getting the black veins. They get everyone inside. Dean's like, I'm not leaving my brother, because they're like, come on. He's like, no. And then like you hear the people, then those people that they thought were safe, now they're screaming and stuff. And Dean is really getting just so and And back
He's
at the
breathing
bar,
in the fog. He's like attempting to breathe in the fog to infect himself,
right? But he
and
won't.
he won't get infected.
Right, because Amara said everyone's gonna die but you, because you wouldn't bang me, right? Anyway, that's not totally it, but she's got a thing for Dean.
Yeah, she's
That's
got
yeah.
like we all do.
Doesn't everyone? Uh, so back at the bar, Chuck is printing out the last pages. It says, tells Metatron to read it. Metatron's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna pass because you're bumming me out, man. Like, I just don't even want to. I don't even want to be here anymore. And Chuck's like, no, come on, go ahead, do it. And this is actually when we're gonna get our second Chuck solo of the episode. I did not mention the first, but he plays guitar when he says that he learned to play guitar. And Chuck breaks out a song, which is Dink's song. Are you familiar with Dink's song, Krissy?
No, what's Dink's song?
Dink's song is an old. It's an Scottish, Irish, some sort of Celtic folk song from the old country.
Okay.
That has loose words. It's one of those folk songs. It's got words, but they may not be the same from version to version. The Grateful Dead, then they did a version of it, but its most popular version, or at least I would say today, is actually sung, and it's so funny because I literally just played on my Spotify like the day or two before I watched this episode.
Okay.
It's from the movie Inside Llewyn Davis, starring Oscar Isaac and Kylo Ren, Adam Driver. Yes, that's his name.
Yes.
And it's actually and sung both in the movie. Well, Oscar Isaac sings it in the movie, but on the soundtrack is sung by Marcus Mumford and is backed by one of my favorite bands, the Punch Brothers, featuring Krissy, who is the world's foremost mandolin virtuoso.
I love a mandolin virtuoso.
And Krissy is quite the virtuoso. And it's I love the song. I think it's such a good little song, but it's also sad. It's very melancholic. Fare thee well, my friend. Which is also another actual, as like a kind of a pseudo name for the song too, is Fare thee well. And it plays as Chuck sings this song, sings this very melancholic, sad kind of like goodbye song, in an octave lower than Oscar Isaac sings it in Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a Coen Brothers film, by the way. I don't know if you were aware of that, Krissy.
I was not.
I love the Coen Brothers. Love Coen. I saw it in theater. I saw it at the old Camel View. Rest in peace, old Camel View. New Camel View is dope. Go to that. But old Camel View was something else.
Pretty great.
I really, truly miss it. I really wish they would have kept it around with the new one. Because it just was like such an old vintage movie theater feel. You just don't get anymore. Anyway, weird tangent. As Chuck is singing the song, Dean's amulet lights up. The fog lifts. Sam is suddenly okay and black vein free. They go outside. The deputy is black vein free. Her husband is alive and apparently got downtown real freaking fast. He barely got super speed, or Chuck just dropped him off.
I think Chuck just dropped him off.
I think Chuck just dropped him off. And as Metatron is reading the pages and all the fog is lifting and clearly Chuck is stepping up and saving the day, at least today, right? Which is then we will get deep down into this rabbit hole as Chuck goes from being savior to villain. Which yes, in the very next episode, the very first lines of the very next episode start us down that path. But so the boys they can't believe what's going on, other than this amulet, which when it is referenced earlier, and Chuck has it, he goes, "You'll never believe where this thing has been." Krissy, where has it been?
It's been in Sam's pocket. Sammy had it in his pocket.
Not this whole time.
No, but that's where it is when we come back to this episode.
But where has it
It's in
been
Sam's pocket.
previously to this episode?
It's Sam's pocket.
Or in Dean's pocket? Or is it in Sam?
No, it's in Sam's
It's in
pocket.
Sam's. It's in Sam's pocket. So it's in Sam's
Yep.
pocket. The amulet, and that means that God is present, and He's wiping away all the stuff. So the boys are outside, and then there's Chuck.
And then there's
Chuck
Chuck, and he says,
"I think we need to go
we
somewhere
need to
and talk."
talk. Yeah.
End of episode.
Yay!
That
Chuck is
was
God.
Don't Call Me Shurley, which I guess I'd never marked down a mark for pop culture reference for the title being a pop culture reference.
Oh, I didn't either.
But we probably should have.
Yeah.
Because, it is definitely a pop culture, one of my favorite movies. And can't believe I forgot to mention this, but Dean irons shirt with beer. And I think we should all just get into that habit.
Did you what?
Dean irons shirts with beer. Dude, stop
Oh,
ironing
yeah,
my
that's
shirts
gross.
with beer.
That's so gross.
Just forgot to mention that little fact. This is
Yeah.
one of the few kind of cute things I gave the boys in this episode. Good for Jensen and Jared on this shoot. They really had an easy time. They're like, oh, we're not the main focus of this episode. We don't have to do a whole lot. We're just gonna get infected with black veins.
We get some fog and some black veins and kick it in Hope Springs.
Kind of dumbfounded at the end of it. Krissy, how did the rules play out, or at least how do we think they played out?
How did we think they played out? Yes, indeed.
Pop culture references. I have 12 and then 13 if we're counting the title.
I got 8. How did I miss so many?
So here's what I did. Every time they referenced an episode of Supernatural, I
didn't count those.
Yeah, I should have just made that a separate rule. I realized during the episode, I was like, but I'm going to count them because they're referencing their own show. So yeah, Tall Tales, Bugs, I think were the only 2 actual ones that were mentioned. There might have been a third that got mentioned. And oh yeah, that's the next episode. So yeah, that's where I got 12. And then I'm trying to think if there was anything Lennon and McCartney.
Yeah, I got those ones.
You had obviously we're not the Kansas or the Wizard of Oz reference early on.
Yeah.
Shoot, I think there was the Mick Jagger Brian Wilson reference.
I got that one.
I forget what the other ones. I thought I had them all written down here.
Cheers. There's a Cheers
reference.
Yes,
Cheers reference.
Everybody knows my name.
I love it here. It's cheers. Everyone knows my name. How many times did you get black veins?
4.
I got 4 as well.
Okay.
Talking about Amara, I got 9 times.
I got 7.
Okay. I think I might have counted a couple that were probably the same conversation, but I split up enough or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Or I just was drinking a lot and marking things away. I got 6 fogs.
I got 5.
Did you mark coming in from the vent and stuff?
Oh, probably not.
Yeah, that's kind of. I just went ahead and counted that. I was like, it's coming in from the vent. It's in the inside. It's fog. It counts. And then 2 Chuck solos.
Yep, 2 Chuck solos.
So that was a game. It was a little bit hard to come up with. Like I said, I probably should have just done Supernatural references as a whole rule itself.
That would have been fun. But I thought it was a good game. They can't all be...
Yeah.
Don't worry, my next game has a lot of rules that don't hit very often.
Krissy, the other part, I mean, again, it's hard to recap an episode with so much dialogue that is honestly really very good.
Yeah, it's very good.
But I'm scrolling down through the quotes now, and I left out this part. You are light, and this is Metatron speaking. You are light and beauty, creation, wrath, damnation, and salvation. I don't care if I was just the angel nearest the door. You picked me. Your light shined on me and the warmth. But then you left. You left all of us, and that that Chuck telling Metatron that he wasn't special, that he was just the angel closest to the nearest the door. Oh, that again, just part of that whole scene. That whole scene, the coward conversation, and Chuck really just, man, is I think a absolute bright spot of the show in its ability to do good, and like for what the subject matter is, I will say like humble or like honest drama. Like it doesn't feel, it feels like the stakes are appropriate. And everyone's acting to appropriate stakes, and like no one's overacting, no one's like phoning it in. I think it is just really good stuff.
I agree. I 100% agree. That's a really
so.
Good
What
summary.
Episode are you doing next, Krissy?
We're taking it all the way back. We are rolling it all the way back to season 1, baby.
Whoa. Bugs?
Episode 19. Nope. Providence.
Oh, I love this one.
It's one of my favorite episodes, and I had an itch and I wanted to do it. So we're doing season 1, episode 19, Providence. Take a drink every time someone dies. I'm just warning you too, there's a lot of rules.
Okay.
Take a drink if Dean flirts. Take a drink if baby doesn't fit in. Take a drink if Dean calls someone Chuckles. Take a drink if someone says the title of the episode, Providence or Provenances. Take a drink if Sam flirts. Take a drink if the boys break and enter. Take a drink for a BM scene. Take a drink when the boys do the speech. And take a drink if they salt and burn something. By the way, all drinks in this episode are doubled because they're in a themed hotel room. Boo, 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 boo. Woo, 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 woo. It's a disco themed hotel room.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
This isn't Bella's first episode. That's a different episode, right?
No, that's a different episode.
But this is like whoever plays the woman in charge of the art or whatever, she should have just kept being on the show, and we were like,
yep,
why don't they ever come back to her?
Yeah, she's the best.
Great. She's awesome.
She's great. She's awesome. Yep, that's precisely it. Okay, so thank you for being with us through another episode of Gank That Drank. Nate, tell the people where they can find us in the real world.
They can find us in the real world at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona. They can go find out where and when the show is happening. I say the where part because that's a thing. When the show is happening at nctphoenix.com. We're going through some construction, so the where
might be temporarily changing.
Different. So but the website will have the info, so go there. And still maybe just be aware that it might change. No, I'm just kidding. But it might.
But it might.
Yeah.
So be aware.
Because exciting things are happening at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater, as they always are.
Yes, they are. And you can find more Gank That Drank at True Story FM. Become a member by just joining us. You get every episode a week early, and with some special extra bonus content, which we love. And yeah, while you're out there in the world saving people and hunting things, the family business, keep the Gank That Drank motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on.
Party on, dudes.
What's up, Supernatural superfans?
It's Nate and Krissy, your hosts of
Gank That Drank, the Supernatural Drinking Game Podcast.
It's the podcast where we make up drinking game rules for a favorite episode of our favorite show, Supernatural.
We recap the episode for you and let you know how all the rules played out.
Then we let you know the drinking game rules for the next episode, so you can play along.
But we want to talk to you today about becoming an exclusive member of Gank That Drank, a Supernatural drinking game podcast.
Becoming a member is just $5 a month. It's easy to do, and it helps keep the podcast going, bringing you more fresh drink to gank. Or gank to drink, whatever.
One of those two. Plus, members get every episode early and ad-free.
With some extra bonus content at the end of each episode as a member exclusive.
We play games, we talk trivia, we chat about what we were watching besides Supernatural.
We talk about our lessons learned from each episode, and sometimes give you a geographical zoom in on the towns or areas the episodes take place in.
We have fun! Ha 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 ha. And we gank those drinks, and we want you to be a part of it.
So join us and become a member at truestory.fm/Gank That Drank.
And when you're out there in the world saving people and hunting things,
you know, the family business.
Keep the Gank That Drank motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.